After almost 8 years, the sequel to Rage is finally in our hands. Since it wasn't incredibly popular, you may be wondering why exactly it got a sequel, and why so late at that. It's natural to wonder if maybe the reason behind it is an overwhelming urge to deliver a quality game that possibly reaches heights the first couldn't dream of. But assumptions like that come with guaranteed skepticism. Thankfully, you've got me to answer all your doubts, so let's get started. When I heard that Rage 2 would be fully open world, I pre-ordered moments later. The explosive combat and driving provided in the first was a great aspect that was limited by its only semi-open world design. The decision to make the sequel fully open world, however, left me thinking that perhaps they should have left it how it was. While the game offers a frequent source of activities, it quickly becomes clear that this is an open world that lacks ambition. Most side activities can be described with one word: generic. The majority of activities on offer are simple in nature, tasking with typical objectives like kill all enemies or find all of said object. What I'd consider to be the most creative activity is battling the authority sentries, that almost act as mini-bosses. But while they vary in difficulty, even these all share the same design and similar attack patterns as each other. On top of all this, the map also falls short by being fairly bland. I wish I could say that the dull brown landscape you've come to expect was the cause of this, but as far as that goes, offering a variation through swamps and wooded areas combined with the pink colour scheme is actually one aspect that the presentation does right. Instead, what makes this map bland is the utter lack of interesting scenery that at times could almost be simple enough to look procedurally generated. Where the open world falls short, the combat is there to excel. In what is easily its defining aspect, the combat brings with it a slew of varying features that, at times, make dealing with the otherwise mediocre aspects less troublesome. Rage 2 offers more than your typical first-person shooter. It takes the usual point-and-shoot dynamic and evolves it into an always moving, always exploding combat experience with abilities. The abilities given remind me of games like Borderlands or Bulletstorm. It doesn't take itself too literally, offering superhuman abilities like high-speed dashing, double jumping, slamming, and gravity-defying mid-air stasis. Combine this with the slick and bruteful gunplay, the explosive pace-causing melee attacks, and a large variety of weapons to choose from, and you've got the entire backbone and selling point of Rage 2.
Lily, the closest thing I ever had to family. We grew up here in Vineland.
Generally in my reviews, the first aspect I'll dive into is the story. There's a reason I didn't this time. The story of Rage 2 is honestly just unremarkable. The dialogue felt forced, the voicing was often inorganic, and the majority of characters seemed to exist solely as stepping stones to progress to the next mission. Perhaps as a saving grace, there are some silver linings here. There are the occasional characters that are interesting enough to recapture the divided attention the lesser scenes drive you to. The occasional psycho nutjobs you'd expect to meet when glancing at the cover art help to distract you from the fact that these scenes aren't really providing anything of value.
Close call.
Not at all.
Gonna be hard to keep.
Unfortunately, on release this game has a number of frustrating bugs. While these bugs are not game breaking, they can certainly be motivation breaking. Some of the lesser bugs I encountered include broken map markers which never seem to update depending on where you are and stay long after you arrive, the heads-up display repeatedly disappearing, sometimes requiring a restart, audio for dialogue disappearing entirely, dialogue being out of sync, and rendering problems. The more nastier bugs were ones that are annoying enough that I couldn't help but wonder if it was a practical joke. For example, I had an incredibly large outpost that tasked you with killing all the enemies that didn't recognise that I finished, which made me walk around for an hour searching before I gave up and restarted. I also had a 5-minute long race that had to be done twice because one of the participants suddenly teleported to the finish line halfway through. Making peace with the bugs wouldn't be difficult, but when mixed with problems like the pause menu having slow reactions and load times, the driving being cumbersome in its handling, and the lack of minimap in a game that you'd think it'd give a necessity, not to mention the previously mentioned bland world, makes this entire experience a bitter pill to swallow.
Holy shit! It took his whole head off!
On first impressions, Rage 2 seems like Far Cry New Dawn meets Borderlands while on acid, and at times, it can meet these expectations. But outside those times, you've got a game that lacks heart. While the combat provides a solid backbone, without the heart, it doesn't add up to much. The first Rage set a fairly low bar to surpass, and I do believe that Rage 2 has come out above it. but after all these years, to revive a series only to deliver a title that's average at best, one can't help but wonder if the devotion to continuing the legacy was a wasted effort that could have been better spent on a new IP. If you're a fan of the original, I think you'll enjoy your time with Rage 2, but I think it's important that you manage your expectations. Thanks for watching. Be sure to support this channel by liking and subscribing. It really means a lot. See you next time.